Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Business Transition Roadmap podcast. Today, I am very excited because I'm here with two of my most favorite people, Steve and Sherrye Merriman. They are the past owners of Clergy Advantage, which is a Colorado firm. And what they do, they're one of, if not the largest firm in the United States that provides tax services to the clergy community. And our story goes back so many years. So welcome, Steve and Sherrye. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I thought we'd start by just having each one of you tell us a little bit about yourselves and also how you got into this business in the first place and how you worked inside of the business, because you worked as a husband-wife for many, many years.
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about you.
I married a preacher's kid, and her father was a minister. And when I was going to college and majoring in accounting, he asked me a bunch of tax questions for ministers that he was never able to get the answer for. So I spent lots of time researching that clergy tax issues. And then I spent one Saturday morning with him and said, here, I think I got answers to everything. He was so impressed that he told all of his minister friends that he had this whiz kid that knows everything about clergy taxation. And before I knew it, I had hundreds and hundreds of minister tax clients. It just kind of fell in my lap, all because of Sherrye and her dad. And then from there, that was back in 1977 when we started that. And moved to Colorado in 91, kind of had my business out here, and I linked up with somebody and we kind of combined our practices. And then in 1999, Sherrye and I fully bought the tax practice from that individual. And in 1999, we sold it in 2019. And I think it was around, maybe our first time was around 2003 when we started working with you, Elizabeth. And really, when we built an office building, moved into that in 2006. And I think that's my memory is that's when we really started working closely together. It was around 2006.
Yes, I think that's correct. Yeah, because yes. I remember we were doing a little bit of work prior to that, but when you went into the building, and
that's right. You helped us a lot with how to structure a commercial lease and that sort of thing. So yes, you were very instrumental in that. At the time we sold the business, we had 7,500 minister clients spread out among 50 states and numerous countries abroad and missionaries. And we also specialize in nonprofit tax returns, as well as retirement plans, specialized retirement plans for ministers. So that's kind of our core business.
That's great. That's great. And so you sold in 2019.
Correct.
Let's go back and talk a little bit about your journey towards this transition, because you two, when we first met, were completely immersed in this company, working on it. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about what that was like.
I think Sherrye probably has the first significant story, and this is going to sound flippant, but really it's quite serious. Elizabeth, you taught Sherrye how to have guilt-free skiing. So just as a little backdrop to that, we would try to get off to go skiing during tax season. And by the time we got to the interstate from Fort Collins, Sherrye was in tears saying, we can't go, I have too much to do.
Turn around.
Sherrye explained that guilt-free skiing journey.
Okay. Well, I'm going to back up just a little bit further, because when we took over the business in 99, we had 5 employees and $1,235 in the bank for the first payroll.
Okay.
Wow. It's a little frightening.
And grew that to the point of having to build a building. And we had 36 employees when we sold it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like overnight, I was already CFO, but then I became property manager, leasing manager, HR,
corporate filings,
all of that. And I couldn't breathe.
No.
Much less ski.
No.
And so I remember when I first started really having one-on-ones, consulting with you, a lot of it was spent crying.
Yeah.
Because I was so stressed out. And you walked me through these paths of just being able to figure out what I do, how I can delegate, who I can delegate to, and my overarching goal on my Pathfinder, which was very instrumental with us as well, was guilt-free skiing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been up there on the top of my list to the point where when I finally got to where I had days marked off on my calendar to ski, I put a sign on my desk and it said, "I ski, therefore I am not here."
We have that sign in our living room.
Yeah. And everyone knew that's where I was. I wasn't sick. I wasn't in meetings. I was gone.
You were gone.
But explain the steps that Elizabeth went through for I don't know, how long did it take you to have guilt-free skiing? It didn't happen overnight. It was a couple of years.
Yeah, it was not overnight. I mean, I had assignments all the time. Write down what I do.
Yes.
And that took a while because I did way too many things.
Yep.
And then I had to make a column the next time of what I could delegate or what I could get rid of completely. And then the next step was who to delegate to. And then I started having to train people.
Yeah.
And so by the time we had, that's another step, but by the time we had an offer on our building, I was ready to jump and go because I was prepared.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it sounds
I remember.
It sounds like guilt-free skiing might be a flippant thing, but that was the first step that you gave us that added value to the business, and it really did add value to the business.
Thank you. And two things about that. One is having a next adventure that you really want to do is very, very important to being able to transition. And the other thing that I remember, Sherrye, when you transitioned your role without adding any employees. So when we first started working, your mindset, your belief or feeling was that your employees, you had 2 at the time, if I remember correctly, that your employees were so busy that you couldn't put one more thing on them. But we also, I know. And so we started down the road of an invitation for them to grow and an invitation for them to learn more and an invitation for them to be able to take more responsibility. And you kept those employees all the way through. Never added, never changed them, but they grew into it and you were able to grow out of it. And I think that that's really important to think about because, we make assumptions that people can't do more when truly with the right support and the right technology and the right training and that, they actually have the ability sometimes to take on a little bit more and take a little off your plate.
That's true. Yeah. And I remember in reading your book on transitions, it was interesting to me to see as I went through the book, it's like, oh, we did that. That's the exact steps that we went through. And it was really neat to see. And there are a lot of steps. Yeah. Like Steve said, it's not overnight. No. And it took a while.
And it's not intuitive. At the same time you're coaching her on guilt-free skiing, you were changing my mindset. When we first started working together, I thought as owner, I had to set the example for all of the employees as being the hardest worker, first one there, last one to leave. And you said, no, that's not how you build value for the business. Who would want to buy a business that completely depended on me and Sherrye? And that completely changed my mindset. I go, wow. And so that was critical. And that was kind of going on with the guilt-free skiing. So that was part of that whole preparation there.
Right, which that gave you the opportunity to go on guilt-free ski days with Sherrye,
yes.
which worked out perfectly.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yes, exactly. So, so you were going along and guilt-free ski days. You're shifting your mindset, Steve, so that you're not the first one there, last one to leave.
Yes.
So you're transitioning then responsibilities also. So you're both doing that. At what point did you start really thinking about transitioning? Because all along you're transitioning your roles, right? Your roles, responsibilities, and tasks. But then there's this thing called equity and ownership, right? Yes. And that's a different kind of a transition. So when did you start thinking about that?
Well,
and your thoughts?
This will probably sound silly to both you and your listening audience, but one of the key things you did was you almost forced me to hire an assistant. And I'm thinking at the time, well, why would I want to give up roughly $40,000 of our net income for an assistant to do things that I can already do? That just doesn't make any sense. And I think my guess is I'm so stubborn, it probably took you about 2 years before I pulled the plug and did that.
I needed Sherrye to help me with that because it wouldn't have happened without her.
But when I finally did that, I go, okay, I don't really know if this is worth 40 grand or not. But all of a sudden, what it did, it took so much minutia off of me that's about the time that we started more explosively growing. Because now I wasn't just mired in this minutia. I could actually think kind of at a 50,000. I had time to actually think, which sounds kind of silly, but that's exactly what happened on that.
Nice. Yeah, and it freed you up to where you could do more creative things for your clients.
And I was just more relaxed. Being more relaxed is a pretty key thing in running a business.
Absolutely. So you sold in 19. I think it was maybe a year or two before that we put together kind of a transition strategy. And when I was thinking about this podcast and preparing for it, it seemed to me that you did the strategy. Your strategy was much longer. Mm-hmm. The written strategy was much longer. But as soon as you found that strategy, you were able to execute it and navigate it pretty much with ease. You put the whole thing together in a shorter period of time than you anticipated.
Well, we went to a retreat with you that you headed up. It was a Pathfinder retreat, and it was outside of Reno in this beautiful little quiet area. Mm-hmm. And my memory is it was three really intense days, and we had to write down goals, and it was brutal for me because the whole thing was thinking, which is rough. But you said something really interesting that turned out to be true. You said just by writing down your goals on an organized format just by doing that will help those goals actually happen. And I couldn't believe it. We looked at that 5 years later, our big Pathfinder map. Every single thing that any significant goal we had was met or exceeded in less time frame than we thought was a ridiculous goal at the time. And so then by doing all of that, when opportunities came, we were ready.
Yes.
I was supposed to retire at 68, and I'm 68 now. Well, I've been retired for 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. I mean, it does help to, when you write something down, your mind starts to look for it, and you can do it. And also, though, knowing where you're headed helps you to make the decisions to get there. And I think it's harder if you go, oh, yeah, I think I'll, transition someday, or I think I'll do this someday, because someday isn't defined enough in order to make that happen.
The someday all of a sudden landed in my office one day. Julius.
If there was probably just one thing I could tell a business owner or a couple, it would be, I had a mindset that someday I was going to we would sell the business. And then I would get ready to do whatever that is. That is just completely the wrong way to look at it. Now, what you helped us to do was to build that over really about a 15-year period, so that then when opportunities come, bam, you're ready to jump on them. And you did all the little things that help build value along the way. One significant thing you helped us do, Elizabeth, that I think built as much value as anything in our business, was putting together what we call policies and procedures. And that took us about 3 years. And what that is like, let's just say the receptionist job. Okay, a new receptionist comes in. We've got all of the policies. She can look at that and say, okay, this is my roadmap of what my job description is, what the details are. This is what's expected of me. And we had that on every process in the business. And it really became a living document that we stored in OneNote. And I would say today that's probably, I would guess, maybe a 300-page document, and every process in our business is written down. And that was enormously valuable, and it gave value to the business.
Well, and it gives value to the business, and it also makes the business transferable, and it also makes each role transferable too, because a long time ago, you really want, instead of having people run the business, people always are needed in the business, but instead of having the people run the business and it's up to the person to decide, what they're going to do in each role, you have the people run the processes, and the processes run the business. And so then it makes it more valuable, and usually you can grow at a higher level when you do that.
Yeah. I'm just curious, Elizabeth, you've done this a lot. Were we one of your most difficult clients?
No, you were not. You're an amazing. One of the things about you is you just stayed on track. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes people try to do too much too quick, and you work step by step, and you actually got the steps done. And so I think that you were a little hard to get going in the beginning, right? But that's because you were stuck. And people do. They get into their business and they love it, and they think it has to run in a certain way.
Right.
And they don't see the opportunities. Yes. So, and that's normal for everybody. It's hard for us as individuals to see our own blind spots. But it's easier for an outsider to see it. Yes. So sometimes that's helpful. Yeah.
And you saw them. I kind of came up with a little skiing analogy on where we were. I don't know how many of your audience are actual skiers. And in case you don't know, Elizabeth is the best skier we know. She is just an elite skier.
Absolutely.
You're very kind.
There's a thing in skiing that if you're leaning back on the skis, which is really a defensive maneuver, like if the terrain gets steeper, what you really need to do is lean down the hill so that the tips of your skis have more control. But intuitively, what we do is lean back. Then the tips of the skis lose control of the mountain. And then when you're on the back of the skis, what happens is the skis take over, and the skis take you for a ride, and you really don't have any control. They just take you for a ride. Well, that's where we were when you first started working with us. We were on the backside of the skis, and the skis were just taking off, and we were just trying to hang on to the skis. We didn't know exactly where the skis were going to go, but we were hanging on, hoping we wouldn't crash. But eventually we learned to lean down the hill and get better control, and so I think that analogy is just exactly where we were.
Absolutely. And I love skiing analogies because skiing is a little counterintuitive when you think about it, for those of you who don't know. So
running
when
businesses too.
Yeah, businesses do. Business is tough. And so is transitioning, letting go and hoping, I instead of hoping, I like odds in your favor, with all the work that you do, that the business is going to go forward well and the community is going to stay healthy and, employees have their jobs and all of those things. I think probably the audience gets tired of me saying that, but it really is a foundation of our country and a foundation of our world. These small businesses make a big difference for us. So when you were thinking about actually selling the equity side, how'd you do that? Like, what happened? Because I know it all came together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it was 3 years of intense thinking about it and planning for it. The Pathfinder that you did was a real key. That was probably 2 years before we actually sold it. But one of the things that I think made our sale a little more difficult is that I just didn't want to go out and sell it to the highest bidder and then whatever happened to the business after that happened. It was very for us. We didn't feel we were just the owners of this business. We felt we were the stewards of the business, and we really felt called by God that's what we were supposed to do, is help these ministers. And so there was a real calling in this, and that kind of translated into our unique culture with our clients. And we had a very unique culture where people felt like they had a purpose, and their purpose was to really help these ministers, take the tax burden off of them so that they could focus on their ministry. And so the sell, it was important to us that we maintain that culture, because I felt without that culture, our niche market would not survive without that type of culture. I thought it was that important. So we had an employee that really was the operations, that ran the operations for, you could call it 5 years, but for 3 years, she really ran the business from an operational standpoint. So we transitioned to her. She wound up buying the business. We structured it so that she would be able to do that, so that we all got our financial needs met and all of that. And so, and that was kind of a surprise to her too. So it was but when it came together, you're right, it came together very quickly because of all of the prior preparation to it. And it's been over 3 years now. Elizabeth, it couldn't have gone any better. So.
Well, let me share about Julius. Because this is really what prompted everything, was when our German, very, very German broker, commercial broker, walked in to my office and pretty much stormed in and slammed his portfolio on my desk and said, "I need to tell you something, and you need to say yes now." And he had a buyer for our building, and we'd been watching the prices kind of gradually going up, and he had a client of his that needed to do a 1031 exchange, and they chose our business. And so all of a sudden, it was like we sold the building within a few months.
Oh, less than that.
It was really quick. So we had to make a decision.
But But without all the prior preparation and thinking, we would have been immobilized and we would have missed that opportunity. We wound up selling the business at absolute top dollar.
The building and the business both.
Well, it wasn't to the same person, but it was in the same
they were
year.
two different people, but you did well. You did well on both sales.
Within maybe 6 months apart, certainly in the same year, we sold a 10,800 square foot office building that we built and the business all in 1 year, and it went smooth. I would say it was very stress free. Did you feel stressed at any point during that?
Probably a little, but I have to say, I mean, we were prepared though.
We were prepared.
And when that happened with the building, then all of a sudden we're going, well, maybe I should just retire and, maybe we should sell the business, and everything just started rolling and happening really quick, and we were ready to roll. And, everything was in place. I had to do a little bit more training and, more delegating. And Cynthia took over as CFO. And all of a sudden, I was out of a job.
Oh my gosh.
I get to be a full-time grandma.
Well, and Steve, you're still active in the business, but in a whole different way. And Sherrye, your transition was shorter, but just there to help out until they didn't need help because they still had they needed to replace a couple things that you needed to do, but that was relatively quick. Yeah. And Steve, you're still active doing what you're enjoying. Yeah.
Somewhat active. I work 1 day a week, Thursdays, and that's during tax season. And so I've kind of become we have 14 tax accountants, and my main role now is kind of a mentor to them. I've got 47 years of experience of tax preparation and IRS representation and all of that. So it's really rewarding that I'm passing that along to tax advisors. And so it's working out great. I'm kind of playing at work, and I'm getting to ski. We're on track to ski 40 days this year, or this ski season. So
that's exciting.
We would have never dreamed that we could ever ski 40 days in a ski season.
Well, and I think the neat thing is you've kept the relationships together.
Yes.
Everybody, I think that the way that you structured it was a win-win-win for everyone.
Yes.
And I think that, and the other thing is, from what I know, because you're still engaged with a couple of different clients, you two get to go different places and are enjoying a little bit of travel with regard to that as well. Some little adventures here and there. Yeah.
I only do what I want to do and work with the people I want to work with and help mentor other people. And so I feel I like doing it this way. I don't think I would have liked to just quit cold turkey.
No, and you can actually, this was not a family transition, but because of the way that you do it or the way you did it, and your relationships are intact, you two are both welcome back at the business, and you both get to go and visit and and so it allowed you to have the next adventure that you wanted, where you stayed engaged and kept those clients going as well.
Kind of a funny little story on family business. Our daughter, we have a very bright daughter, very personable. People really like her. And I thought maybe could groom her doing this at some point. And so we're sitting in my office and I said, Tricia, would you ever like to run this? And she looked at me and she said, Dad, I'd rather dig a ditch. So I took that as no. So there was not a family. There was no family person there.
Right. So I want to ask you one last question, and I want Sherrye to answer first, and then Steve, you answer second. If you had to leave our audience with a lesson learned or just one piece of advice, what would that be?
I think it would be, don't underestimate what your employees will do for you. because they will step up and do whatever you ask them to do. And they'll be glad to do it. And they would be happy for a new challenge. And their first reaction will not be, I'm too busy. It will be, I'd love to help you.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Thank you.
Be open to that.
Be open to helping. And I love the idea of when you transition out of any role or any task, you give another person the opportunity to learn and grow. And I think that that's so important. So yeah, thank you so much, Sherrye, for that. And then Steve, what's yours?
I would say start early doing things to build value for your business. Don't have a mindset that someday I'm going to sell the business and I'll figure it out then. Just do the little things along the way, like policies and procedures. Get better at cash flow. Get better at things that don't involve you as an owner, and do everything you can do that as an owner you can step away from things and continue to build value. And then when the opportunity comes, you're ready. And don't wait until the end. Just build it as you go. Build value as you go.
Thanks. Nice. All right. Well, we're at our time, so I wish I could go on longer with you two. You've been amazing, and I just appreciate you so much. It's been so much fun for me to be able to work with you over all the years, and I'm so excited and proud of you. You did such a great job, and you really made a big difference in so many lives. And I think that as owners, that's something to take to heart. So yeah, thank you for all you did for everyone that you touched.
Yeah. And thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.